Hi, Prosperity Team. It's Dr. Money coming to you from the Prosperity Corner of the universe, where silliness is sacred and nobody's perfect. I am your POP, your Professor of Prosperity, and I'm here so that all of our lives can pop with prosperity. I have a great treat for you today. I want to introduce to you a person that I met through The Funniest Thing, which is a show by Darrell and Ed. He called me up and asked me if he could interview me. And it was like, funniest thing, I was just thinking about agape. And my thought was, I never really did explore agape or doing anything with them or sending them any of my books. He had looked in the library, found a book by Leah Holtzman, my friend that I've interviewed here. He looked online, he found the interview that I had with Leah, and he thought, well, I think I'll interview the person that interviewed Leah. So it's interesting that I had just had the thought about not making any connections with agape, and he actually found me in a circuitous way through agape. So I want to introduce to you the Funniest Thing co-host, Ed. Ed, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Hey.
It's such a privilege to be here. The main thing I was excited about was to be with you because I have been watching your nightly videos to get myself into a prosperous and just flowing state of mind. So thank you for inviting me on. And also thank you on behalf of Darrell and I for coming on The Funniest Thing with Darrell and Ed. We were amazed at how much we have in common. I was one of those shows where we said, best show ever, best guest ever. I told my wife I felt like you are a sister or, just right in the same family with us spiritually. So yeah, it's an honor to be here.
That's wonderful. Ed is a member of the Prosperity Team, so we have him along with us creating a consciousness of prosperity, which we like to spread throughout the world. Now, Ed, what I'd like to ask is, has there ever been a time where you didn't think so prosperously, but something happened and it changed your perspective of your life in some way, and you began to think in a different way? Can you think of a time or an event that you could share with us?
Definitely. For one thing, I'm always uncovering beliefs that are limiting, my prosperous experience and treating my mind and transforming my experience. So I always want anyone who knows Darrell and I to recognize that we practice this stuff all the time, that it's not like a destination, that it really is a practice, an ongoing experience. But the thing that comes to my mind in terms of a direct example of a time where everything started to change was maybe a couple of years ago. I think it was around 2 years ago, where again, I had already been doing this podcast and practicing these things, but money wise, I had like zero savings. I had the credit card was, when I wanted to purchase things, it wasn't a question of do I have enough on the plus side, it was do I have room on a credit card to do that. And it was this constant cycle of, I'm receiving money, but then I'm giving it to this credit cards but the credit card debt wasn't going down because of, the interest and everything. So I started the thing that changed for me at that time. I love Reverend Ike, who's another member of the Prosperity Team, in heaven. But he's got a ton of videos on YouTube and he's amazing. He's very insistent about prosperity, about that being our birthright. And I finally heard him and Florence Scovel. I've heard all of a sudden I realized, start practicing some form of visualization. And
I'm going to interrupt you. You said that name very quickly, Florence Scovel Shinn. So I want people to say that, because she is definitely one of the first people that began to talk about a prosperous living. She actually studied the Kabbalion. Her student was Norman Vincent Peale, and Norman Vincent Peale is the one that really brought this ancient wisdom through to the masses.
I did not realize that Norman Vincent Peale, who I love him, because he talks with a New York accent and he really sticks it to you, and I love that about him, but I didn't realize that he was a student of Florence Scovel Shinn. I'm going to have to tell Darrell and see if he knew that, because one of the through Darrell, one of the favorite books that we always recommend for someone who's new to this is The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn. So recommend that. So what I started doing was visualizing myself with wait, hold on one second. I'm hearing some music. Elliot, my son's here with me. Is your phone like going off with a song in the background? Oh yeah. All right. Thank you, sir. That's my lovely son, Elliot. Speaking of prosperity.
Hi, Elliot.
Yeah. His happiness and our relationship is a definite form of abundance in my life, I have to say. He's getting ready to go to college, so there's a lot of tears on my wife and I's side, trying to, wrap our head around and open up to the new good that's coming through that. But that's the thing about abundance is when we practice the spirit of it, I hate to get sidetracked, but life does that. I was just reading Thomas Troward. There's this book that we just found called The Same Place We Found You in the Library of Unity of the West Side in Culver City, which is where Agape is also located. But by the way, Darrell and I met at Agape, at a meditation at Agape. So I think that's kind of what brings this whole thing full circle. And we've had Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith on our show before. He is amazing. But I was just reading a book called The Hidden Power. This copy I have was published 100 years ago. Darrell and I love the old stuff about prosperity because it has what we call the medicine, the medicine. And he talks about the spirit of opulence, the spirit of it. And that's what this is all like. More and more for me, this is about being in the spirit of opulence, where I recognize that the source of my life, which is so fundamental, is generous and kind. And I've had to unlearn that it's stingy and I have to protect myself. And that's what I feel like the practice of meditation and affirmative prayer, I'm relearning to see what's already true. Eric Butterworth always said that's why affirmations don't make things true. They just put us in harmony with what's already happening. And so
I love that. Now let me interrupt
yes.
you for a moment and say we got a little bit interrupted and off track. I just want to be sure. I'd asked you if you had an event
yes.
that changed, and then we talked about the books, but I'm not quite sure. Let's see if you could just make that a little bit clearer.
Oh yeah, no, it's all coming back around. So what happened was I started visualizing at that time. For one, at that time, it's so funny. I remember I was thinking if I had a $2,000 check that it was like the end of the month and everything was always just right to the wire. And I was like, if I had a $2,000 check right now that I could put in my checking account, I would feel wealthy. So because the key is think of something, whatever it is that inspires the feeling. This is where it all comes back to what I was saying with the reading, which is the spirit, whatever these visualizations are. That time it was just this small thing. If I had a 2,000, but it inspired the spirit of opulence. I started to feel myself open up, get out of fear, and my energy started flowing. But then I built on that, and I have a certain amount that I imagine now is in my checking account, and imagine now is in my savings account. That's much bigger than a $2,000 check, but it inspired. Like that's the thing. The visualization should be something that it's like. Get as crazy as I want, as long as it is quote crazy, because it's not crazy. Because I guarantee this is what I always realize, whatever I think is crazy amount, there's someone else who already has way more than that, and that's just their reality. It's just so short story long, I started doing the visualization, and I don't know how this works, but I'll tell you right now, what used to be the credit card debt, which was just substantial, like $30,000, is now the savings, which I didn't even have. And then my checking account never goes down to zero. And I swear, there's things that have happened along the way, very like real things, like my wife's income increased, because that was the other thing. At the same time, there's two things, the visualization, but also Darrell is a great big proponent of a budget. Like, what do I actually need on a monthly basis to survive, to live the way I want to live? And write that down, because sometimes that part is scary. So I wrote that down, and I included things that might seem gratuitous or whatever, like that made me feel happy into that. And at that time, I felt almost like guilty writing down whatever, a massage, the money if I wanted to get a massage or whatever it was, this amount to eat out. But I did it anyway. Did the visualization, which was as big as I want, the budget, which is what does that look like for me? Because that allowed me to define for myself what would be rich. My wife's income expanded to meet that budget and then some. In fact, we had to lease cars at that time. And I was like, this is taking me just over the budget. How am I going to do this? But I felt inspired and compelled. And I think that's the thing. By tapping into the spirit, I felt internally guided. It's like, go for it. Go for it. Now it's so funny because the leasing those cars and paying those leases is not an issue at all. But so all of these things have conspired to, one, actually fix the physical situation, to adjust the physical so that the credit card debt has been released. The savings has grown. It's no longer an issue to pay the lease. And it's the cars that we wanted. It wasn't like I didn't go, oh, I should get the cheaper one. We got the one we wanted. But what it's leading me towards is realizing that the universe is truly generous. And I think it was Trower that said, like, the sin, or if the challenge is not that we're going to ask for too much, it's that we ask for too little, because the generosity is flowing. And the other thing I've learned, think about circulating and giving it. What am I going to do with it when I have it? How am I going to bless others? How am I going to celebrate? Think about more about how am I going to give it and circulate it. That inspires, I think, more inflow than just, I'm going to get it. So that's my little story about that moment. But at that specific moment, I can remember where I was parked in my car when I finally decided I'm just start visualizing. And the way I started visualizing, by the way, because my mind was like, so like, what's that going to do? Like there's so much negative chatter. I just told that part of my brain, look, for the next 8 minutes, I'm putting on the timer here. We're just going to keep going back to the thought, even if it doesn't do anything. But what I found is by allotting that 8 minutes, that part of my brain would relax, and it started to be fun. So, and I think that feeling of fun and all, that practice, and it's just awesome. Life is so much more of a dream than I think I used to realize. And I get to choose kind of the feeling nature of the dream that I'm having. And is it a generous dream or is it a stingy dream,
Well, I want to kind of go back over that. And I want to say that something happened to you that I think happens to us. In other words, we can have intentions that we're going to have prosperity. We can think of a lot of things. We can do a lot of things. But there was that one moment in which there was no doubt in your mind. And in that moment, you had everything it took to follow through. And that's important. We can know that it's going to happen. We can read and everything. But whatever that moment is, a strong decision was made. And then you took the steps, the practical steps, making a budget. That's what I did when I used to be $700 a month upside down. And I was able to make that every month. And I had a book. And I took the debts I wrote in it. And not only that, I decorated the page so that it would be beautiful. And when I paid the bills every month, I would light a candle and say a prayer and give thanks and pay bills. And somehow it was always there. So I think, having that, writing everything down for the month and just knowing that it's going to be there. But certainly I didn't go and spend, crazily. I honored what it was that I wanted to pay off. Right. I also wrote a covenant with the universe and told them that I would do anything that it took to pay off my debts. And for those of you listening, I'd like to say that a lot of what debt has to do with is guilt. That's one way that we pay ourselves back for the guilt that we have, and credit card debt is one way that we can kind of keep that guilt loop going. And as we have an internal sense of innocence, which is what I really worked with, then I was able to pay off my credit card debt, which was pretty high for me at the time. And so you made the commitment, you made a budget, you began to get what I call the cheerleader information, and that information is the good stuff, and the good stuff is saying yay, 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 and then we go, yeah, we can do it. We can do it. So you got
Right.
the cheerleader material with the old material that you were getting from people like Troward and Butterworth. And then it looks like you began to look for that in your everyday life. Now, one thing that I did make a little change is that when you wrote down the amounts of money you'd like to have, I always wrote down 3 amounts of money. 1, which was the amount of money that would get me through the month. 2 was a bigger stretch than that. And 3 was a wild stretch. That way I felt like that something was going to hit.
Right.
If I had 3 different levels that I visualized at.
Yeah.
And then it did come to pass that the outrageous level did come in. And I do believe that we all experience what I call money slowing and money flowing. And that's regardless of what's going on in the world, that sometimes it comes through swift. A lot of money comes through, and sometimes a lot of money doesn't come through. And I think the prosperity perspective is to be able to feel okay whether the money's coming in and going out, because it will go out. I mean, it's going to go out. There are unexpected expenses. All kinds of things are going to happen. So it's going to come in and it's going to come out, and we need to learn how to deal in a very calm and easy way with that money flow and that money slow.
Yeah.
That's a great story. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And could I just say one thing too? Because visualization for me, I think it's Eric Butterworth who warns kind of about mapping things out too much, like how it's going to happen or the specifics. For me, I just want to say again, for me, the visualization really is about getting me into the flow with a spirit of generosity. What comes after that? Because there's a time where I tried to monitor my thoughts so closely, and I became like miserly in that way. But now, so I visualize this outrageous thing and then I let it go. I'm not even thinking, is that coming? Is it not? I'm thinking, then I just feel so good about life. I go out and I'm joyous and kind and with people, and I'm just naturally loving and friendly, and the quality of my life just improves by the joy, and I just let it go, and I'm not even worried because I trust that I guess the Taoists would call it the Tao, the flow, the way is carrying me toward my good. And what that is, I'm going to enjoy it probably even more than what I imagined. So, yes,
absolutely. That's so good. We don't want to be the prosperity police. We don't want to have to police every thought that we have, because that is difficult and it's energy draining. And so, as you say, as we just point ourselves toward the spirit of prosperity, which is also the spirit of love. It's the essence of life. It's the dynamism that makes everything move. When we point in that direction, then everything just filters down. Our good is magnified.
Can I just say you're amazing, because your breadth of knowledge and the fact that you know so much about this stuff, and you have the lighthearted approach, that's what Darrell and I look for. It's like Jesus said, it's the letter of the law killeth, but the spirit giveth the life. You have both the letter and the spirit. When you combine those two, just amazing ththings happen. So thank you for coming into my life and Darrell's life. And, you're going to be a guest on a show that's coming out today on Unity Online Radio, and will be anywhere people can listen to podcasts if they Google on Spotify or wherever. If you Google Funniest Thing with Darrell and Ed, your show, which is called Everyone's a Minister with Ann Sermons-Gillis, will be on the show. Will be coming out today and then over the weekend on podcasts. So we're so excited that I'm just so blessed to have the opportunity to know you.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. You probably don't know this, Ed, but I really was not planning on doing the Abundance Affirmations page on Facebook. That's how it all started. And I kept getting a kick from the universe. It was like everywhere I went, it was in my face. And I just went, I'll do it. And so I did it, because it was just, the universe was after me like the hounds of heaven. It's like, this is you're going to be doing it. It's like, okay, I will do it. So I want to thank you. Yes.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for being here. Let's all join together and take in our good through the in-breath. The in-breath is a breath of receiving. And as we exhale our intention that all other beings receive their good as well. The humans, the animals, the oceans, the air, all beings, and every breath that we take is for the benefit of ourselves and everyone else. And then there's one more thing that I want you to remember for sure. Of course, you know that I'm Dr. Money, and I want you to know that I love you. Anything you got to say, Ed, about that?
We always say at the end of our show, Darrell and Ed love you. So it's been a pleasure to be on your show today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.